All right, good morning. Henrik, sit down, please. Oh. It's not as full house as yesterday, but that was slightly expected. That's why we have all these internal speakers, mainly, to start with this morning. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed yesterday. This morning we are taking a trip down memory lane, celebrating, as we have heard quite plenty of times now, 50 years. So Jan Hugo and friends will do his bit. There will be a film. That's why we had popcorn on the outside. If you missed it, then it's still time to go out and get it. And then after that, Jan Hugo will do what he loves the most, speak. This time together with Per Martin and Jasper. And some of you may have seen Jasper here before, I don't know, 5 years ago perhaps. Then he had 10 minutes on his speech. He had 26 slides. So I'm quite curious to know what's in store for us now. So anyway, I'll give the word to you, Jan Hugo.
Okay, good morning everybody, and we are starting with the film, so buckle up and enjoy.
Yeah.
Thanks to our communications department for making this movie in a very, very short time frame. But I think they did a great job. It is a lot of history that goes into 19.1 minutes that this film lasted. Now we are heading over to the claims side of things, where we have looked back in our claim files really to try to see what have we had of strange things that have happened over these years and so on. So we will give you a kind of a taste of some of the things that we have seen. And it says also on the program that I have two friends, or I have friends that will be joining me, and they will be joining me later to talk about two cases that were very, very close to, they were central in handling them. So I'll leave it to them. But first of all, let me go through some of the things that I found in the claim files that we have had over the years. And I've been involved in quite a bit of them. This is the way I have tried to sort out these cases. Expect the unexpected, vessels colliding with offshore fixed installations. Where did my toe go? You never know. Getting the law straight. So we have to make sure that there are legal principles that are being preserved in a proper way. Pollution incidents, fines, etc., which is, you'll see when we get there. Cheeky claims leader, yeah, that's the one. And that's what friends are for, and that's for my friends to do. Right, so let's start with expect the unexpected. I guess you all recall this incident. I don't think anybody expected it. In 1985, we had a loss in Peru, where the just elected President Garcia, he decided, because of the land being in a terrible financial shape, he decided that he was going to nationalize all international assets or investments in Peru. And Belco Petroleum, they owned a refinery and other petroleum assets in Peru. So they were nationalized in December of 1985. Insurers, which were led by AIG in New York, 60% line, where Storebrand had 5%, and the London market, predominantly Lloyd's, had the 35% of that policy. So they disputed that they could claim the full value of the policy. And it was agreed to settle it at $163 million in 1989. Thanks to AIG, they had connections with the political people or the political establishment in the United States, They engaged Dr. Henry Kissinger, who was the Secretary of State under Richard Nixon, and he was also been the assistant for security advisor for Gerald Ford, the president. He was engaged to negotiate with the IMF, which the new president who took over in 1990, Mr. Fujimori, he asked the IMF to come in and refinance the country. And he managed to get them to accept that, well, they get the financing provided that they are paying all their debts to those that lost their properties because of the incident. So we recovered that in 8 installments, the payment that we had. 80%, not 100%. So other things that happened. You heard that we had broad cover of liability policies or liability insurances included in the policies in the mid-80s. And we saw a lot of personal injury cases in the United States. And this is a case which involved an alleged neck injury from a work accident. And as it was proceeding to trial this case, our lawyers, they got a hint from people that, there is something strange about this guy. First of all, he's a very dedicated hunter. So, try and check out and follow him and see when the hunting season is starting. And our lawyer, they did engage a private investigator, and the hunting season started, and case closed. The next, you've probably seen this sign several places. There was a guy who ignored this sign. He was working on board a platform. He was doing his business on the toilet, had his cigarette, and he had a good time. But then, as he had done his business, was about to leave, he dropped his cigarette in the toilet, and it exploded. For some reason, gas had come into the toilet. So, beware. Do follow the instructions that you get. 10 years ago, Gunnar had this slide up, and this slide, just to show that we had some strange losses, which our boss, when he was explaining the bad results of 1992, you heard about all the storms, all the long-tail claims coming in, and so on. And this on top of that, and our company leadership in Storebrand, they were not very thrilled to hear about, well, what does this have to do with energy insurance? Well, there's a lot of energy in the fire. Right, offshore collisions. This is a vessel, this is actually in Iraqi waters, not insured with us, but they had a bad meeting with the platform, and particularly the cross-bracing there, as you can see. This was a case that we had also in 1985 for one of our dear clients that we were leading underwriters for in the Gulf of Mexico. They found that a vessel had hit one of their platforms, not this one, because that is the one, West Cameron 485A, that was removed a long time ago. But it was hit, and there was no reporting from any vessels that they had touched or collided with a platform in the Gulf of Mexico at the time. But fortunately, we found parts of the bridge wing and some paint on the platform. And it was alerted to the authorities, and they had people in the various ports to check if there were any vessels there which had any damages that could match this evidence. And they found this vessel, and that was taken with their trousers down. So that was kind of a hit and run case. Then you heard about the guard pulling out of P&I for U.S. Offshore clients, and this was the case that was the drop that filled the bucket. It was St. Barnes. At the approach of the hurricane, they demanned the platform, but it was still anchored to the seabed and nobody on board. In the storm, they broke anchors and they started walking about in the Gulf of Mexico, crossed a lot of pipelines, toppled one platform, and also collided with another platform. And you can see the call when you try to avoid, try to deny that you had hit this platform. So that was the end of the defense. So where did my toe go? This was the A Turtle. It was a platform that had been operating in Brazil for Petrobras that had been taken out of service. It had been sold to others for $10 million, and it was towed from Brazil to Singapore for upgrading and then being put out on the market. It was towed by one single tug, and they had not calculated properly what volume of fuel that they needed to have for the trip. So halfway in the Atlantic, they were about to run out of fuel. And to avoid blackout of the engine on the tug and the platform then drifting onto the tug, they cut the tow. And they started just following it as sister vessel was moving from South Africa to them with fuel to refuel. And then they started going to meet the sister vessel. And when they came back, they couldn't see sight of the platform anymore. And they did try to circle around to find it. They didn't find it. But then in June, it was found by a fisherman grounded in Tristan da Cunha. Anybody who knows where Tristan da Cunha is? It's a very remote place in the middle of the Atlantic, just west of South Africa. Because of the low value, the insured value on the hull was also very, very low, so there was not much really to try to run a salvage operation. And they tried to pull it off from tugs, but it was sitting too hard on the ground. But of course, we just they declared a total loss, and we paid it. And then P&I took over and removed it, and it was scuttled in 3,000 meters of water. This place, Tristan da Cunha, 5 years later, God had another incident. Cargo vessel called the Olivia. They also grounded on this island. You could ask your actuaries, what is the probability of 2 vessels within the space of 5 years to ground on a remote island like that? Their computers could not figure it out. Right. Another one is a conical drilling unit which was specially built for operating in icy conditions in the Arctic waters of Alaska. And it was moved from the Aleutian Islands it was to be moved from the Aleutian Islands to Washington, Seattle, for some repair and upgrades. And halfway, they ran into a storm, and they had problems with the engine on the tug, and the tow broke, and so, etc., etc. And it grounded on Sitkalidak Island, just offshore Kodak Island in Alaska. They managed to get it off and put it into a safe harbor where they were doing the necessary checks and to find that it was worthy to be towed further. We had to pay the oil spill abatement costs and some debris removal because a lot of the things on the deck were washed away in the storm. But it was alleged that the move was motivated to avoid state Alaska property taxes on the oil and gas properties. The value of this, would cost Shell approximately $6 to $7 million. This loss cost them a lot more. So, getting things straight, or the law straight. We do not normally want to engage in or take our disputes with the assureds into any courts, houses, etc. We think that we should deal with them ourselves and find amicable solutions. But when it comes to some legal principles which are very important for the insurance really to be able to operate, sometimes you need to take it to court. And the first case here is a case where we actually had to take it all the way up to the US Supreme Court. The case was actually, or the issue was really on, well, if you have a case, you have multiple defendants, and one of the defendants are settling out before you get to court. How is the remaining liability then to be apportioned against the defendants who do want to go through the trial to get the liability settled? In the trial court, the court came to that there were the two defendants. They had 32% and 38%, so together 70% of the responsibility. The settling defendant, they paid $1 million, and the total losses was assessed to be $2.1 million. So the issue was, should they pay 32 and 38 of 1.1 million or of 2.1 million? The first instance said that they should pay of the full loss. The Court of Appeals said that it should be on the difference after you had credited for the settling defendant, and the Supreme Court, they agreed with us. Well, you can't take the benefit of others who have settled, because it can actually go both ways. You can negotiate a settlement which is actually lower than their proportionate part of the liabilities. So we had that, and that is now settled law. The next one is an interesting one. It's a number of oil thefts of diesel from a refinery in California, where the truck drivers, they just used screwdrivers to disconnect the meter. They filled up, metered, and then they stopped the filling, used the screwdriver, removed the meter, and topped up the tank, and then put the meter back again. And that happened 653 times over 11 months. And the suspicion was that it was Russian mafia, or it was emigres from the Eastern Europe that were the culprits of this. No evidence of that was provided. So it was first tried in the Los Angeles City Court, and we lost on that. We lost on both the defenses. The defense of theft by trickery was one of them, and also the number of occurrences was the other one. And we lost on the theft of trickery. So they appealed it to the Court of Appeals in California, and we also won on the number of occurrences. So no loss for them. And this is the one after Piper Alpha, where we had to settle on, well, the knock for knock clause. That it worked in this place, because there was a strange wording of this. it said that, well, you have knock for knock, unless it was caused by the sole negligence or willful misconduct of the party which otherwise would be indemnified. So the contractors, they said that, well, it was the sole blame on Occidental, so therefore they did not want to try to settle the losses initially. So therefore we had to go together with the partners and settle them on amicable terms, what we call a mid-Atlantic settlement. And we had to, once the Cullen report came out, and it said that, well, actually there were a number of contributing causes, and there were different parties who were involved in it. So we killed that sole blame argument, but we had to take it all the way to the to the House of Lords to get it settled. This is one of Gunnar's cases. It was a reinsurance where we had 100% term, which is quite special to the energy insurance, and that was tried, and it was also finalized in the High Court in London, and the defendants, they were not allowed to appeal it further. This is the Danish case on the Siri. Unfortunate for the assured, they only run the cases against their two last period policies. The evidence had demonstrated that the loss had actually occurred prior to the inception of their first policy. So they got no cover for that. They only got cover for the sue and labor costs that the court assessed for the trying to avoid a total loss of the I see that time is running, so I just need to move on. Pollution fines, etc. That's another thing. This is a case involving a leakage from that transfer line from the FPSO to an offloading buoy where tankers are coming in to pick up it was approximately 40,000 barrels of oil that were spilled, and most of it was dissipated and was also mitigated by using chemicals to kill it. But there was a mystery spill that appeared, and that landed on the shores. And because the operator already had engaged a lot of oil spill response equipment, they were ordered by the authorities to do the land or the cleaning of the beaches of the mystery spill that landed there. Nostra, they tried they suggested to the authorities that they should impose a fine of $3.6 billion. They did not have any legal basis on that, and that was fought in various courts, and they did not go along with the fine. Legal communities and so on, they put out a lot of cases in Nigeria, and also some proceedings in the UK to try to get better settlements. And they were also thrown out earlier this year. Drilling endeavor was pretty much the same, but here they tried to also make the claims in California, where the operator of this had their main office. And they had the Nostra attempt to also have a fine of $3.6 billion. And all of them have been thrown out. What we also have experienced is that there is a new tendency in Brazil that if you have an operator that have more than one occurrence of oil spills from any of their operations, irrespective of whether it's their own assets or whether from contracted assets, the fine will be multiplied by the number of cases that they have in a year. So that's a new one. Cheeky claims leader tried to rewrite the policy. This was Victoria 10,000. They had a loss of their drilling string and the BOP. They managed to salvage the BOP, but the drill string, they asked to leave it on the seabed 2.5 kilometers, almost 2.5 kilometers deep. And first they were given some kind of permission, but then the environmental authorities came and said, no, you have to remove it. The claims leader for the hull, they tried to argue that the 25% wreck removal under that policy should only be assessed from the depreciated value of the risers and not the full value of the unit, which was, if you read the policy conditions correct, is the case. So, but ultimately, they had to pay up. What are friends for? Jasper.
All right. Thank you, Jan Hugo.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah. Hello. As Magne alluded, I'm clearly brought in for my talents to speak very quickly, and we're running over time, so here goes. Congratulations, Gard, for 50 years. Thank you for 40 years support, because it's been 40 years since we pushed our first FPSO with Gard's participation to Angola. I've been working with Jan Hugo for 12 years. Oh, sorry, can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Yeah, we've been working together for 12 years and have definitely seen some interesting things over the years. I think the most bizarre claim was my mooring system being eaten away by some unseen bacteria. But unfortunately, this one takes the cake. Proudest moment was, and thank you for including that in the video, to co-draft section chapter 18 for the BW Catcher. I am a friend of Jan Hugo, not so much because of what he's achieved for us and what the Gard organization has achieved for us, but predominantly cemented on the time spent on this claim. Most notably, I think what cemented anchored our friendship was being locked in a room by a Petrobras executive, notoriously called Nero. So here goes. On 11 February 2015, we had an explosion in a pump room. Make no mistake, FPSO shouldn't have pump rooms, but we used to be in the business of converting sailing tankers to FPSOs. So we had a pump room caused by a well-meaning emergency team detecting a gas leak and hitting something that caused explosion. So what happened? We were in the middle of an offtake, sending cargo from port side to starboard side, which inadvertently caused a leak, but resulting in the loss of 9 colleagues and various crew injuries. There was flooding because the fire system went off. There was no danger to the unit itself, but because it had an offtake, it was listing. But it became a dead ship instantly. The whole topside, power, etc., shut off immediately. Again, because we were doing that offtake, there was this fear of whether we were listing, sinking. It was easily established that there was no breach in the main hull, but there were casualties. There was a dead ship. There was that explosion. So all the right authorities had to come on board. But as you can see, we had the weird pleasure of welcoming Navy personnel on a gas-filled FPSO with armed with weapons. Not very clever. Tragically, the firemen who coming to our aid decided to shoot videos of our misfortune and put them on YouTube. And at that time, and I'll go more on that on the next slide, Petrobras has a very weird procurement system of long-term charters, and business was slow. So every charter that was in the south of Brazil basically came to our aid and was circling around our dead ship. The circumstances surrounding this case was that it was Carnival, which actually was not a bad thing for us because it resulted in not getting a lot of media attention to this horrific accident. But what was painful is that we were in the midst of Operation Car Wash, which you're all familiar with, which meant that Petrobras was paralyzed, couldn't make any right decision, so any logical decision in coming to our aid or addressing this casualty was the wrong decision. So many contractors, yards, etc., were blacklisted, resulting in a vessel that not being able to berth in a yard in Brazil. We were fully laden, like I said, we did offtake. It is gas filled, condensate filled. If we would have been towed to a terminal in Brazil, we could have offloaded the cargo within 48 hours. Instead, now we had to wait for 9 months and do offtake offshore with butterworts running through the top of the deck in searing heat. Low oil price, as I said, all of a sudden all these vessels that had nothing to do were deployed. And in the background, we kind of felt already a claim building up from Petrobras using this as an excuse. And Dilma faced impeachment, so the whole country was basically authority-wise to stand still. How did we pick this up? We confirmed, as I said, that the hull was intact, so work could be done on the vessel. But we had to source for a flotel because we were dealing with a dead ship that we couldn't move. We couldn't go anywhere in Brazil, as explained. Petrobras threw up their hands, and despite sending all these vessels that did nothing but were being charged for, we had to source our own flotel to make sure that we could deploy people close to our unit to be shuttled there on a daily basis to keep the integrity of the hull intact. Helicopters to get these people to the flotel, supply vessels to run the necessary equipment needed. We had to depressurize a lot of risers and umbilical. You don't depressurize umbilicals, but we had to depressure the pipes, the topsides themselves, and whatever was connected to Petrobras subsea, and do that preservation in situ, aided by generators because everything was dead. Most tricky thing was, again, we were doing that offtake. We didn't commence yet, so we had to get rid of that cargo. Again, would have this been done onshore 48 hours? Now, accident was in February. We started doing the offtake in September, where in searing heat, a gas-filled FPSO had to enter the cargo tanks via butterworth pumps, pump it over with Framo pumps, and then put it to various shuttle tankers because there was so much on board. Subsequently to that, we could disconnect, lay down all Petrobras's equipment, but that could only take place in December. So we were in the hole for 10 months being worked against by the state that Brazil was in and basically inertia of the authorities. So by the time February, a year later, we could finally commence our tow. Excellent tow. Thank you, Boscales. We arrived in Karamun because you can't just go into Singapore. So we had to go back to Singapore, the unit where she was converted. Again, we couldn't go to Brazil. There were suitable yards with dry docks that could have something of her size, but it was not allowed. So following the tenders according to the insurance conditions, it was a return to Keppel. Karamun first of load to cargo, then finally in Singapore for damage assessment. And 6 months later, that's not really true actually. She went to Keppel and never came back. Where she's still actually till today. Lessons learned. Not to defame Petrobras here, but the background of the state where Car Wash was, Petrobras was involved, where Brazil was. No decision was the right decision. So the contract ran on. There was no termination. They couldn't agree with joint ventures how to pick this up and where to go with this. And this unit is was producing in the Espírito Santo state, which is gas rich, but since then is importing gas from Bolivia. Bizarrely as it will be, I work for BW Offshore and BW Energy. BW Energy last week acquired the Camarapin block on which he was working. So we're back and we owe that state some gas. So we're making good. For us, it was never an option to declare a total loss. The pump room where it sits, it was basically a vertical explosion. It was localized. The topsides were perfectly intact. And also, first bullet point, the contract with Petrobras had it hanging over it that we were obliged to provide an alternative vessel whilst this contract was informed. And going back to that top point, the contract was informed due to inertia, and so we had that hanging over us. We ended up actually cutting off the aft of the vessel where the explosion was, and replacing that with new accommodation, actually short sizing her by 12 meters. Renamed her BW Opportunity, not my choice, very sorry. And we sold it to a very undisclosed buyer who is very active in the Black Sea, and I guess everyone knows who she is. But most important here, and that is kind of where Gard, the Nordic Plan, Norwegian Hull Club, all insurers on my slips proved their worth and help us way forward. We were in the hole for $120 to $130 million by chartering those flotels, supply vessels, choppers, doing that Framo pump magical trick, etc., etc. That was eating away more than a quarter of her insured value. And that was all cost incurred peripheral to the damage itself. The damage, like I said, we had to cut off a whole aft. That has come at a significant cost. But this meter was running. So in order not to have this anymore, I started thinking of finding a way to park that money. And we had a very unfair term used for this. That was the Banana Republic cover. Because this can happen. It had nothing to do with Brazil. We work all over the place. There are certain jurisdictions, and include the US there as well, where if something like that happens, red tape starts working, delays start causing, there's multitude, overkill of authorities that need to be involved just to tick the boxes, whilst we need to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible, because it is nothing short of a miracle that nothing happened to that condensate. So for us, in order to kind of address that whilst keeping the repair bill pure and clean, because that's what it is for and what it needs to be utilized for, I came up with some bespoke wording, and thanks to the help of Jan Hugo and Lieve, we basically have an extra layer sitting as some kind of IV system on top of our whole machinery, where we say, we have a big claim, we have significant damage, but this is running peripheral to that. Can we trigger that? So it is an agreed value, it is an agreed document in cooperation with us as assured, with the claims leader to say, can we start tapping into that little pot of money? And we're also grateful that we have it. And again, we have it on most of our vessels because this has nothing to do with Brazil. So, thank you, Gard. Thank you, Nordic Plan. This was a rarity. Going back to the title of Jan Hugo's presentation, let's hope that our misfortune was a rarity. But thank you for helping us pick it up and moving forward.
Yes, I think I have something like 20 slides in -2 minutes, so I don't know what we do with the casualty on the agenda here. But this case is a quite interesting case, and I could talk for hours about it. I will not. I will take the extreme shortcut in order to save the refreshments. Troll solution, fairly conventional 3-leg jackup unit, found its sunset in the Gulf of Mexico back in 2015. 2015 was a fairly demanding year, as you can understand, with also the case Jasper presented here. The reason why Troll Solution was at this location was that she was assisting in servicing some wells for Pemex. And as the plan was, they were supposed to be located when they arrived to the Can Alpha wellhead platform, like you see on the left side there, centered in way of the wellhead platform. However, as they approached, they found that there were some protrusions on the wellhead platform. It was a flare boom there that they needed to avoid, so they needed to shift the unit by around 10 meters to port. And in Norwegian, we have a saying that can be translated to something like a small bump can topple a big wagon load, a tall wagon load, and this was the case here, as we shall see. As you know, jackup rig approaching the location, operating its leg, placing the legs on the sea bottom and starting to preload and load. One of the risks that is predominant here is punch throughs, meaning that legs are going through hard layer of soil and then experience a sudden and rapid penetration. So that was sort of one of the main fears here. And there were some geological assessments based on geophysical and geotechnical data that was provided by Pemex. And the estimates was that the legs would penetrate around 18.5 meters down into the soil, and that the risk of punch through was minimal. The sediments in this area was very homogeneous. However, it was also noted through these geophysical surveys that there were some ancient buried channels in the sea bottom in this area. These were ancient structures that over thousands and millions of years had become sea bottom, and they were filled with sediments that was of a different character and softer than the regular sea bottom. This was noted by the warranty surveyor, but since the geological experts had stated that no danger of puncture or limited, then this was basically forgotten. Unfortunately, as you also see there, the Can Alpha platform, the wellhead platform, was located just at the edge of such a channel. And as Troll Solution approached and they shifted the position, it turned out that the leg, the starboard leg, was placed just at the shoulder of this channel. As they loaded, preloaded and loaded, the leg just slipped down into these softer masses in the channel. And they experienced a punch through like incident, resulting in this heavy stream and healing of the unit. Tragically, there were 2 people dying from this, and there was some 20 plus people getting injured of different degrees. Smith was involved by Hull Machinery underwriters to do salvage operation, and after a few weeks it was realized that this is nothing to salvage really. It's this is a wreck. So CTL was declared and accepted, and that's when PNI is getting in for the wreck removal. because it was obvious that this unit had to be removed, and there was a wreck removal order accordingly. So salvage operation turned into a wreck removal operation with removal of oil, with removal of a crane on board, and also cutting the upper legs of this unit. Yeah, this is how that was done. So it can be exciting to be to work in insurance. After the upper legs were removed, the operation continued with patching up the hull, blowing in air into the tanks to get the buoyancy back, to cut the lower legs, and then the intention was to tow off the vessel and into to Sevoply in Mexico to recycle. Nice plan if it works. Problem here was that this is not a smile. It's the indication of sort of the weather in the area, where clearly the weather is well. Basically what it is. It's percentage of days where there is navigation restrictions into Carmen port. So it's representing the weather, and as you can see, the weather is very nice in May, June, and July. But as we came into August and September, we started to be quite worried, actually, and rightfully so. As we came into October, the time windows for operation were shorter and shorter, and we were depending on some time windows to succeed here. And unfortunately, on 25th of October, when the last cord of the leg under the unit was to be cut, this vessel that pressed air into the unit needed to disconnect because of heavy weather, and the air disappeared like from a balloon in a way. This looks like a healthy wreck removal, but it's not. Troll solution is there on 25 meters depth, swept under the carpet, it's strange how vessel names sometimes can represent the fact in a brutal way, and we really got a Troll solution here for this unit. So we were grieving a couple of days, obviously, but then we started the preparation for a new wreck removal operation next year. I think it's fair to say that this is the case that is probably the one that has changed our way of working on large casualty the most. Now we are approaching these kind of projects with a much more project management like approach. So we this time did it another way, cut it up, got it on a barge. 1 year after, it was almost gone. And we got permission to scuttle it at the location where we had been 2 years before, and scuttled a vessel called a unit called the Jupiter 1. Basically on the same location there, in some 100 years, if somebody is doing underwater mining on that 1,000 meter depth, they can find some 20,000 tons of steel. Then we also need to mention what was mentioned yesterday about ambulance chasers. And having seen our good colleague Mike Lee's presentation yesterday, we realized that we met the good guy here, actually. But he wanted to present himself like this. But he was not a bear or a tiger like we see others doing, and he managed to find some strands of American Nexus that he could utilize, and he got something out of it. So enough for some more Havanas. So I think I'll stop it with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Not very surprisingly, but we are running over time. So time for a break, and then afterwards, Johanne will tell us how to save the world. So look forward to that. 10 minutes, 15.